I'm Peter Brusso for 101 Small Business Mastermind, and I have with me Frank Syringa. Say good morning, Frank.
Good morning, Frank.
All righty. There you go. So this is actually podcast number 92 for us, which is pretty cool. I mean, we're certainly not the powerhouse of some of the other people, but we're certainly not deadbeats either. So that's a good sign. We're not pod fading anymore. All right, I'm going to take up my charge here on my A block here and talk about. We've been talking about talking to a lot of different businesses and talking about a lot of different businesses, and we're running across people that say, oh, they're only going to use Yelp for their web presence, or they're only going to use Facebook, and how wrong that really all is, because if they change their user system, that they decide what's good, bad, and ugly on their system, and you're on the ugly side, you lose everything. So I want to talk about the wheel of marketing. And I kind of coined this term, and this particular graph is 14 years old. I made it back in 2004 to help clients understand the whole concept of marketing. And basically, here you are in the hub of a wheel. You are the hub, and your values and your offers and your everything, your ethics and everything sits with your company in the middle of a hub of a wheel. And the spokes that come out from the hub and touch the rim build your whole business, the way you contact your potential clients. And you have to think of your potential clients, maybe even being the tire on the wheel on the outside out here. And the spokes hold up all of that wheel connected to your hub. There's a very intricate way of working there. And these spokes can be very different depending upon your type of business. You can do advertising, podcasting, public speaking, blogging, online communication, or communities would be, of course, your Facebooks, your Twitters, your Pinterest, Instagram, etc. You can target market certain groups with your targeting. That could also be direct mail, all of that kind of stuff. Going and visiting companies, anything in the physical world. The sledgehammer routine, which we haven't talked about here, but we can talk about later. Matter of fact, I'll probably present that at a later date. Obviously, your networking, if you belong to networking groups like you have, Frank, with your entrepreneurs group there. And of course, your website. And all of these spokes come out to support the potential clients. And oddly enough, your clients will actually aggregate around the ends of these spokes depending upon more or less the nature that you're coming out to talk to them. Blogging, obviously, will be people online. Websites be people online. Advertising might be print media as well, or online, both podcasting online, public speaking, physical typically, but you could also do webinars, things like that. So you can kind of see how these might actually aggregate different types of potential clients in their particular regions. And so I think it's really important that companies understand that it isn't just one spoke that makes a wheel go round. As a matter of fact, it won't go round. So you've got to think about multiple prong approaches for your company to touch potential clients as they aggregate around the hub, or around the tire or the outside wheel here, based on the nature of the spokes themselves. So without any further ado, it's as easy as that. Frank, you want to talk about that before I get off this?
No, what I like about it is that as old and 14 years is an eternity in the internet world. How much that applies today. Now the names may be changed. Online communities now, people call it social media.
Correct.
Looking forward to talk on a sledgehammer. But, it comes down to the basics. Who is your target market? What do they want? Can you satisfy their needs?
Mm-hmm.
And is it easy to reach you? It's goes back to the medicine man days when he drive into town with a wagon, and he had a little stage in the back, and he sell his elixir that would cure anything from baldness to make your plants grow.
Right.
Which was probably the same thing. But it comes down to know who you are, who you serve, how can you reach them, and what's going to get them excited. And that's it. And that's it. And the medicine man was probably the best marketer in the world in his day, in his or her, well, mostly in his day, and I guess when you look at it, we're still medicine man today. We don't have the wagon, we've got the internet.
Right.
So,
and if in fact one of your spokes is to go out and talk to people, public speaking, we've got Rotary, we've got, Toastmasters. You can we set up a talk once in town, so that and people, some people tend to want to do that. I mean, they want to come to a talk where, like, I don't really like to do that very much, but so in your people will aggregate to those certain things, touch and feely versus more techie, and but all of it has to be encompassed in a business. You have to think out around all of that. It isn't just one thing. One thing isn't going to work. Just one thing usually doesn't have many legs. Okay.
Right. Agreed.
So, okay. Without any further ado, I think I need a prop up here. And there we go.
There is.
Love that sound.
I kind of feel like Pavlov's dog. I get all excited when I hear that thing. Okay, today's twin. This week in the news. People who have made news, are making news, or will surely make news. People who do things the way they do them and are successful about it. This week's twin is about a lady named Marcia Kilgore. Marcia Kilgore.
Who is Marcia Kilgore?
I am so glad you asked. Marcia Kilgore is an world-renowned serial entrepreneur today, and it's because she became this way because she turned an uncomfortable event, uncomfortable, not world-shattering, uncomfortable event, in fact, an event that most of us have experienced, and you experienced it recently, and she turned that uncomfortable event into a multi-million-dollar motivator. Let me tell you about Marcia Kilgore. Marcia, the last of three daughters in her family, was born in 1968 in the farm town of Outlook, Saskatchewan, Canada. I never, aside from Outlook being the mail system from Microsoft, I never heard of Outlook, Saskatchewan, Canada. But let me tell you all you need to know about Outlook, Saskatchewan, Canada. It has 2 TV stations. And for 10 months a year, the #1 activity that everybody participates in Outlook is how to stay warm. It is really, really cold. Marcia's dad was a real estate agent, and her mom stayed at home to raise the kids, to raise the family. As a teenager, though, even in Outlook, and I'm maybe being too cruel to Outlook, Marcia was focused, and she was goal-oriented. She earned top grades in high school, played in a band, high school band, and she participated in sports. So she was active. She wasn't going to let the cold keep her from doing what she wanted to do. At age 15, Marcia's sister, obviously was older, she had a friend who owned a local gym. And he said, hey, Marcia, I don't know if he was trying to impress his sister. Her sister says, hey, you can come to my gym whenever you got some time and be my guest. Well, at that gym, Marcia went. She says, hey, it's a free deal. I'll take it. She met a female bodybuilder who got her involved in bodybuilding. And Marcia, being focused and goal-oriented, she became obsessed with working out. And she eventually won the middleweight bodybuilding titles in Saskatoon and Moose Jaw. And as you will hear later, this would not be the only time Marcia turned obsession into success. While living in Saskatchewan, Marcia had jobs as a waitress, a gymnastic coach, and an aerobics instructor. But Marcia was looking for a way to leave Outlook and do something special. She got her chance. Marcia's sister was a successful model in New York City, and she made a challenge or an offer to Marcia. She says, hey, Marcia, if you can get accepted into Columbia University, which was not easy to do, if you get accepted in Columbia University, I will pay your tuition. That's all Marcia had to hear. He had to hear was a challenge. So to no one's surprise, Marcia got accepted into Columbia University. So 18-year-old Marcia leaves Outlook, Saskatchewan, Canada, and arrives in New York City with $300, ready to enroll into Columbia University. But there was one problem. Her sister's career and finances had not materialized as expected, and she could not pay for Marcia's tuition. Well, by that time, it was too late for Marcia to apply for financial aid. So Marcia started the next phase of her life in New York City with $300 and a lot of ambition and no place to go. Marcia enrolled in a few classes at a local college just to keep her studying. And since Marcia was already addicted to working out, she joined the local neighborhood gym because she needed to work out. It was there at that gym that she met a film director who was impressed with Marcia's workout regimen. And she said, "Hey, Marcia, will you be my personal trainer? I'll pay you, but please be my personal trainer." She did, and he was impressed. He then introduced his friends and his co-workers to Marcia, and they hired her to be their personal trainer. Well, Marcia's sister, the model, heard about Marcia's personal training success, so she introduced Marcia to other models, and they in turn hired Marcia to be their personal trainer. Marcia now had a full-time job as a personal trainer. Not too long ago, she had $300 and nothing else to do. Well, Marcia was working 6 long days a week. She'd get up at 5 a.m. and have her last personal training client at 9 p.m. There was little time for herself. Most time between college classes, she was still taking class in college, and clients, she just had just enough time to wash her face and apply new makeup because she wanted to look good. This grueling schedule started to take its toll on Marcia's energy and the health of her skin. And one day, after taking an economics exam, she was still studying for college courses. Marcia was exhausted. He says, "You know what? I'm going to do something just for me. I'm going to treat myself to one of those facials that she heard about." She had been saving for a while for this for me only treat, and she took her $50 to the place that she heard was the end all of place to get facials. She says, "I deserve to be to something special. I deserve this treat." And she remembers walking into this place and sitting down for her treat. Make me, make it special. The esthetician looked at Marcia's skin through some kind of contraption and said, "What a pity." The esthetician then called over her manager to look at Marcia's skin, and he too was disappointed at how bad it looked and told her. Marcia felt awful. Marcia was embarrassed. Marcia thought to herself, "That'll just happen. This is no treat." She says, "If I ever," this is thinking to herself, sitting in that chair feeling like a piece of crap, "if I ever have my own business, I will never make my customers feel bad about themselves." This is the event that made Marcia the success she is today. Marcia then did what I call the Marcia thing. She says, "This will never happen to me again. I will never be put in that vulnerable position." She was so upset at what happened to her at that thing that she signed up and took a 4-week crash course on skincare because she says, "I will never be humiliated like that again." While she was taking a skincare crash course, she convinced her personal training clients to come to her 300 square foot apartment. She had a 1-room apartment in New York, to let her practice skincare on facials on them. Well, remember she had many models as personal training clients? They were amazed at how well Marcia's facials improved their skin. They started telling their model friends that, "Hey, I got this personal trainer that does facials on the side. You've got to see what she did to my skin." And they could all see the improvement. Marcia now had a long-lived skincare clients as well as personal training clients. The power of word-of-mouth marketing. Marcia had to spend a penny on marketing, except doing a great job and making her customers feel special, not bad. Her clientele grew and grew, and soon clients had to book facials 5 to 6 weeks in advance. That's how booked she was. She says, so in 1993, at the age of 25, Marcia Kilgore started her first business. And I said first because there's going to be more. She hired a person to work for her, and she opened up a business, again, in her apartment, and they called it, let's face it, Skincare Treatment Center. Clever, let's face it. The business kept on growing. No marketing, just word of mouth. She now had 5 estheticians, and they still could not keep up with demand. The business became so popular that she opened up a storefront, that new clients had to wait 16 months to book their first appointment. She was booked almost a year and a half in advance. 3 years later, I want to remember the timeline here. In 1996, Marcia moved to a bigger place because she was growing in New York's Soho neighborhood, not a cheap neighborhood, with 10 treatment rooms, and she changed the name of the business to call Bliss Spa. Marcia was asked in an interview recently, she says, wait a minute, Marcia. In 1996, there were many, many spas in New York City. What made Bliss such a big hit? And here's her response. She said, in all the businesses I have started, and as you'll see, there'll be a number, they've always been places that I would want to go to. If I wanted to get a facial, remember the facial, or a body treatment or pedicure, I wanted a place that was non-judgmental. Stick it to that first place that made her feel bad. And I wanted a place where people go and just had fun. It's supposed to be a treat, not a chore. After 3 years in Soho, Bliss started making their own skincare products line under the name of Bliss. And then Bliss opened locations in other cities, in New York and LA and major cities. In 1999, 6 years after opening Let's Face It Skincare, Marcia was approached by LVMH. They're a European conglomerate which owns the Louis Vuitton high fashion line. And they bought 70% of Bliss from Marcia for $50 million. That all went to her. And in 2004, 5 years after that, Marcia sold the remaining 30% of Bliss to Starwood Hotels and Resorts for an unknown dollar amount. Not bad for business number one. So after selling Bliss, Marcia moved to London with her family, and she took 3 months off to decide what to do next. She was only 36 years old and already a multi-millionaire. Well, she was doing the Marcia thing, that's what I call it. She was reading newspapers and looking for what she calls gaps. We call them business opportunities or complaints or problems. And she noticed a few things. She said, at that time, this was now, 1999, I guess it is. 2004. She says people were worried about the environment. And you know what? People wanted designer quality products at affordable prices. This is just before the crash. She thought to herself, how can I take these two concerns and roll them up into a fun product that I can sell? Well, 2 years later in 2006, at 38 years old, Marcia started her second company. She called it Soap and Glory. Designer, affordable cosmetics in very simple, environmental friendly packaging. She was living in London, so she approached Harvey Nichols, which was a London-based fun department store, to sell Soap and Glory, and they agreed. Again, she already had a reputation with Bliss products in the States. Soon after that, a large London-based drugstore chain named Boots, similar to our CVS, came calling, and soon they were selling Soap and Glory in their 1,800 stores. Within 6 years, Soap and Glory was doing over $100 million per year in sales. But Marcia did not stop there. About a year after Soap and Glory was doing over $100 million in sales, Marcia had an idea for a shoe that was ergonomically correct and would align your body as you walk. She says, a lot of people, their only exercise is walking from point A to point B. What if I could design a shoe that would straighten out your body as you walked, as long as it was comfortable? So in 2007, Marcia, working with a few designers at a couple of third business called FitFlop. And they were selling 500,000 pairs per year in Bath and Body Works retail locations. In 2014, 7 years later, Marcia sold her stake in Soap and Glory for an unknown amount of money. It was private and she never discussed it. Marcia did not stop there. 2 years later, in 2016, Marcia started her fourth business called Beauty Pie. And here's where Marcia's cleverness even, I think, hit the higher level. Marcia's Beauty Pie is a combination of Netflix, which is, subscription-based model, and Sephora, which is high-quality cosmetics. Beauty Pie subscribers pay $10 per month. $10 per month, and they can buy the highest quality beauty products, but they do not pay the retail price of beauty products. They pay only the manufacturer's cost to make them. For example, high quality lipstick, which costs $3.57 to manufacture, sells for $25 at a place like Nordstrom's or these Sephora's. Beauty Pie members pay only $3.57. She took the similar to a Costco model and says, I'm going to make my money on a subscription fee, and I'll give you the best products at the best price because I don't make any money on them. When asked how long she had been thinking about this Beauty Pie concept, Marcia states, you know what? Probably my whole life. She says, I love beauty. I love helping women look better and feel more confident. She said, that's my thing. She said, I know how to formulate because I did that with Bliss. I know the best chemists because I did that with Bliss. I know the best suppliers because I created my own products. And now with the advent of the internet and the power of social media, I can give all people a bigger piece of their, what she calls beauty pie. As in her previous businesses, Marcia relies on word of mouth and now social media to build her subscription base. Beauty Pie is privately held, so growth numbers are not publicized, but nobody questions Marcia's quest for success. Not bad for a kid from Outlook, Saskatchewan, who at the age of 18 arrived in New York City with $300. So I looked at this and I read everything I could and I watched her videos. And I came up with 3 small business lessons I think we can learn from Marcia Kilgore. Starting when she was living in New York, here's lesson number 1. Starting when she was living in New York City, Marcia Kilgore did what she was obsessed with and passionate about. Solving problems she noticed in the health and beauty industries. She was not into inventing the next iPhone, creating a new recipe for apple pie, or even how to groom a dog. I'm sure they're important. She was only obsessed with health and beauty. And I think this may have originated from her sister's boyfriend inviting Marcia to the gym and getting her involved in workouts. So Marcia did what she cared about and passionate about and obsessed with. Most people are happy just being better or cheaper than their competitors. My question is, what problems in your industry are you obsessed and passionate about solving? Small business lesson number 2. Because of what happened to Marcia when she scrimped to save that $50 to get a facial and give herself the treat, from that moment on, Marcia promised that every business she starts, she strives to make her client's experience so exceptional that they rave about it to their friends. Word of mouth. You know what most people strive to do? To maximize the number of clients as long as each client experience is acceptable. Acceptable is not acceptable to Marcia. It's got to be exceptional. If I were to survey your clients, would they say that their experience is so exceptional that they rave about it to their friends? Or would they say that you did a pretty good job, what you did was acceptable? When it's exceptional, word of mouth. When it's acceptable, they thank you, pay you, and leave. Big difference. But business lesson number 3 is really important, I think, today. Marcia Kilgore looked outside her industry for ideas to start her latest business, Beauty Pie. She went to the Netflix subscription business model. Most people think that their industry is so unique that they must only look within their industry for new ideas. Well, just a basic question. Could you add a subscription service to your business? If not, why not? And that's my twin for this week on a successful serial entrepreneur named Marcia Kilgore from London.
Wow. Wow. And so, wow, that's all I can say. One thing that's very obvious to me is that she could certainly pick good names.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's not, well, she never, aside from the classes she takes part-time, she never went to college except for evening classes.
That's
she
amazing.
had a job, she was working, yeah. High school graduate. I remember one interview. She was at a conference, the beauty and fashion conference in DC, I think maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And she was interviewed by this editor from, I don't know which magazine it was. And man, you knew she was good. She's, you know how people just have that, Tony Robbins, have that aura of confidence? Marcia has that aura of confidence. When she speaks, she's like E.F. Hutton. When she speaks, people listen.
Yeah, you have to be old enough to know that one.
Oh my God, you're right. Like, our age is showing. So anyway, no, and what I like about her story is that this was not her plan. She was going to go to Columbia University. It just didn't work out, but she didn't stop doing something.
Excellent.
Yeah,
All right. Hey, one thing I want to do, and we have been negligent in doing so, is to let everybody know that they can sign up for our newsletter, which we really don't have, but anytime we're going to put out podcasts. So, if you sign up on our list, which is on the right-hand side of this particular, once we get it produced on the page, there's a sign-up form. Sign up for that, and I will send you out, hey, we got another one up, or whatever's going on. So make sure and sign up for that. The other thing we're going to start doing is getting sponsors for our ads, and in the short term, I want to share my screen here. I have this one thing, and we've talked about it before, Frank, about where in the world are the defenders? And everybody knows I run this little business from home, and the self-defense tools find their way all over the place. And here's a picture, and up on our website, or my website, under the About Defenders, is where in the world, and I get people sending me pictures of the defenders where in the world, and this one happens to be being held by a policeman in New York City at Times Square when the ball is dropping in 2016 to 2017. You can see the ball in between the digit capture hole here coming on down. So it's kind of fun to see where these things show up. And with any of your businesses, you never know where it's going to go. You might think so, but you really don't know. That's half the fun of being in business. Frank, you want to comment on that?
That is so cool with the ball on New Year's Eve in Times Square.
Yeah, and I didn't ask him to do that.
That is excellent.
This is all user-generated stuff. I put out the idea that, well, the idea is to have an iconic area in the background, and you just hold up a tool. We don't even need to know who you are, but it is just amazing where these things end up. So this is one of those cases that, from your mind, you create reality. We're reality generators, and this is in fact a proof that that came out of my head, and I made these things and then moved them out, and there it is. Otherwise, wouldn't have ever been out there. Didn't happen. Only new martial arts tool in the last 250 years of history. So it's kind of cool from that standpoint. Let me see, and if you get on the page, you can always go to other clicks. Now here's another one just for fun and games. Very obvious. Here's a defender, one hanging from the Hana Beach parking lot in Maui. So this gentleman, matter of fact, the story behind this guy is he, getting on the older side, was going to make this travel, and I think you've been to Hana Beach, right? Or Hana? out
Yep.
the falls
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff, and yep, and Maui, and it is a little remote. And so you think about your own safety, and he purchased one, two, three, four of these items, and I asked him hey, if you're going to go to Hawaii, because he mentioned it, this is what he's doing, and take some pictures. So he was kind enough to do that. Pretty cool. So the other thing that I want to mention as well, I want to show the update to my Elfin notebook. So remember the Elfin notebook, you write on and you can erase it with water and put it in the microwave, erase all the pages, and with their app you can shoot it and upload it. Let me show you. I did that, and that's it right here. Hang on a second. Let me share my screen. Pretty cool. A little different than I thought, but here is what I was writing down. I was been doing a lot of studies on hydroponics, which we'll be talking about somewhere downstream here. And so getting my feet on the ground with hydroponics, I was taking these notes. And then I shot them and uploaded them. Now, it did put a QR code here. I don't know what that is yet. I'll figure that out. But it found the edges of the whole thing, and up they go, and does your little drawings, as elementary as they are. But, you know, I can move this into a document and print it. I did try the text recognition, the OCR, optical character recognition. Didn't work too well. That may be because of my writing too. But to capture it, move it in like this, pretty nice. Not have to crop it. It does it all automatically. Pretty darn nice when it comes down to that. So, and you know, here's a picture of me taking it normally, and you can see, wow, I'm way out over here, and it couldn't find the edges and said, hey, this isn't right, you know. So, you know, that it works out pretty darn well. So that's pretty cool. And I went to see Gordon yesterday. I took it over there and I said, you know what this is? He goes, it's a notepad. I said, no, it's not. And so be able to carry this around, write on it, and then erase it with water or saliva if you're that gross about things like I am, and worked out pretty darn well. Now, in our talks, in this hydroponics world that I'm entering into, and I've got indoor hydroponics running right now and outdoor hydroponics, and I'm trying to, as an engineer, get my head around the different types and why you'd want one over the other, and looking where the industry's at. I think there's a cottage industry growing around hydroponics. And then I ran across this guy, which I turned you on to, Michael Ballard, who was a very successful entrepreneur, and he started looking into this. And I think you watched the same talk I did, and I might include it in the podcast here or cut it down or something. But basically, he went through how, you know, food generation in America is up to big corporations, and we need an out-of-the-box thinking and a disruptive business model, which is what he went after. And I'm coining up to talk about this, and we talked about it. People don't understand what that really means. Interesting to note, at the very end of the day, he had nailed everything down of what the barriers to growing your own food in your own house were, and he went after creating a system that was affordable and does all this stuff automatically, and connected to Wi-Fi and all the right stuff. No geeky chemistry stuff, you know. Of course, I like that stuff, but again, for the normal person, not a good idea. And at the end, he quit. He deployed his system, and it was unaffordable. And he realized it as an entrepreneur, which a lot of people don't. They come up with a solution. Oh, I can figure out how to sell this at $3,000 a pop. Nobody's going to do that. He's smart enough to say nobody's going to do that. But then he joint ventured with some other people and going off a different direction. Now, that being said, I think they failed at the engineering step. He went after a design company of a high-end design. He wanted something, a beautiful work of art. It's never going to be cheap. And it's never going to be affordable. and that's what made him stop. So I think he blew it on that one step. I would venture to say that, Anthony and I built our rotating signs. Those signs were very, very expensive, and we said it doesn't have to be, and here's how you break the back of that. And we made a disruptive business model out of everything. For example, just a quick turn, the way that most of the signs in those days, they were paper, were moving, paper up and down. Now they're electronic. We always knew that it would take over the industry. But at the time, they used stepper motors, which were built in the medical industry. They needed to know precisely where a tool was, and so they utilized these things. They're $1,500 a pop. You need 2 of them. So that's why these systems were so expensive. We built essentially a stepper motor out of a $12 DC motor and 2 diodes. Completely blew everybody away. And that's the concept of a disruptive business model, and thinking out of the box. It can't be the same as everybody else. It can't be a better mousetrap. So now that I've kind of greased the skids for you to tell me, let's talk about a disruptive business model, Frank.
Yeah, there's a couple of terms that I believe people have a misconception of what they mean. When I think of a disruptive business model, a disruptor, if you will, I think of Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Virgin Airlines, whatever that gentleman's name is.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't think of his name. Anyway,
Sir somebody.
Yeah.
I want to say it starts with a B. Baynard. Branson. Yeah.
Right. These guys are disruptors to the nth degree. Let me tell you about a disruptor that I talked about in a twin maybe a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Hanna. Michael Hanna lost his job as a buyer at Nordstrom's, one of those high-end department stores. He couldn't find work. So he wound up selling mattresses, because what else was he going to do? He had to bring in money. And he opened up a little mattress store at a closed car dealership, because they had a lot of parking and space. It was cheap because the landlord needed some money. How do you compete against the big box stores? He couldn't outbuy them. He couldn't outprice them. But it was in Portland, Oregon, and he did what Marcia did. He knew what the environment was in Portland. They are the green people, the greeners.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had a little trailer built on the back of a bicycle, and he delivered his mattresses on bicycles.
I think I quoted that in the last podcast. I showed pictures.
And he disrupted just by doing something like that. The TV stations heard about it, and now it's okay. So pretty cool. But they went a step further, because Michael's so clever. He says, tell you what, if you ride your bike to my store, I'll give you another 10% off the price of the mattress, because you're good for the environment. And he built his cult. He was a disruptor without being a Jobs, a Musk, a Branson, or a Bezos.
But let me salt your tail there a second. That's an older term. But talk about, building a cult. Almost every business needs to build. Who is your ideal client? They can become a cult, and they would prefer you over anybody once they join the cult.
Right. And you build a cult and I'm going to be a little controversial, which doesn't surprise me.
Oh, geez.
You build a cult.
Let me get an aspirin or something. Yeah.
You build a cult by discriminating in the good way. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want everybody. If everybody's in, it's not a cult. It's a country, I guess, whatever you call it, or a nation. Michael Hanna didn't want everybody, the guy in his Ferrari or the guy in his Ford Fiesta. Okay. He wanted a guy that rides bikes. He wanted a guy that...
he wanted a green culture more than anything.
There you go.
Yes.
He went after the greenies.
Yep. Which they're being preached in coming out of high school nowadays. Everything's got to be green.
One of the things that I teach when I work with my clients is, don't go after everybody. You will fail.
Mm-hmm.
Go after as few as possible to make a living, and it'll grow organically.
Mm-hmm.
When you go after as few as possible to make a living, you cut down your startup costs tremendously. And when you do that, people contact you, you don't contact them. And anyway, so that's the that's the cult. Cult in the that guy Jonesboro there in Guyana, wherever that was in South America, where he killed himself. So he had a cult.
Right, Jim Jones.
Yeah, very good, man. See, that's still working. That's a bad cult. Michael Hanna, I want greenies. That's a great cult.
Well, you know, if you ought to do a twin on distilling exactly what a cult is. And I've been writing this marketing book for the last 20 years called Tribal Marketing. You know, and looking at humans, we've been tribes forever. It's in our DNA to be tribes. When you say don't discriminate, that's ridiculous because tribes always discriminated. Don't go over there, don't eat that, don't go, you know, it's survival mechanism. It's built in our DNA. And so if you're going to sell like a surfboard product, you better go learn the surfboard culture, their signs, their lingo, and you got to put your marketing in their terms. That allows that cult to follow you because you belong.
Marcia Kilgore, who I talked about a few minutes ago, the multimillionaire, she's now 51, living in London, is a multimillionaire because she created her own cult called Models with Bad Skin.
If you take a look at the defenders, well, let me just back up the self-defense. Okay, self-defense falls into a couple of categories. One is Taekwondo, for example. It's more a sport art. It's not a killing art. The arts I teach are killing arts. We want to hurt somebody very quickly, very, very rapidly. We don't go for points. We go for an end result. And the defenders, for example, go from I'm going to only hurt you and discourage you a little bit to you're going to be dead, you know? And so why do I have 11 models? I get beat up on that. But the cult being, I'm now inside the self-defense world. If you need to do a lot of damage quickly, here are the set of tools. And there are reasons you might want to do that. Like when I go hiking, if I get attacked by a pack of dogs, I don't want to hurt them. I want to do substantial damage to them quickly so that it discourages them to hurt me any longer, you know, versus if you go to your family outing and Uncle Tom gets too drunk and you got to take him under control and move him around a little bit. You don't want to do any real damage to that guy. You just want to discourage him from being dumb and doing stupid stuff. And so it's very important to identify your cult. And let me go one step further. So I'm looking at all these hydroponics. I start telling my neighbor across the way about hydroponics. He goes, could we teach the kids to grow fresh vegetables here and sell them? Absolutely. We're 30 miles away from the closest fresh vegetable that we can purchase. Out in the desert, our biggest lacking is fresh. Well, what if you could do vertical growing or horizontal growing or even cracky method mason jar growing and teach kids how to be entrepreneurs, and they get on their little bike and they go to all the old timers out here that are landlocked, so to speak, and offer them an option, fresh vegetables at half the cost. No driving, no requirement, we deliver. I think there's a calling for that across the world in these remote areas, that kids could learn to be entrepreneurs and have their own business.
Yes. They asked Marcia Kilgore, because I didn't put it in my twin. I'm sorry I didn't now, but it'll be in the book.
What book?
Well, we're getting to that. Marcia Kilgore, she said, they asked her, I said, I noticed that they asked her, this is a question that's one of the conferences I watched a video of, that you start another business while you're still working on the previous business. She says, yeah, for a couple of reasons. She says, number one, I want to have as many eggs in my basket as possible in case one doesn't work out. She said, all those folks. Yeah. But number two, she says, what if somebody beats me to the punch, comes up with this idea before I do? I want to beat them to it, so I start it. Beauty pie, I start it. Fit and Grow, Fit Flop, I mean, Fit and Grow was the hydroponic company. Fit Flop, that type of thing. Start. You got an idea, think about it, you can talk about it all you want, and you know what you're going to be? A guy who had a missed opportunity. Action. When you have an idea and you do nothing, they're called dreams. When you have an idea, you do something, they're called creations. Dreams do not pay bills. Creations pay bills.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so it all ties in, doesn't it?
20 years ago or so, when I became an entrepreneur, of course, I think I was born one, but when I got laid off, I had to do something. And I've always said you start 10 businesses simultaneously, because you know me, 7 will fail, no question. 7 of your ideas, for whatever reason, will not make it. 3 will. And out of those, you'll get 2 base hits and 1 home run. Sell off the base hits, maybe even sell off the home run, take the home run, get it spun up some more to sell it for even more, and put 9 more businesses online. And you keep that up. And you can see, I mean, the plethora of small businesses I've had is just goes along that put 10 online all at once. Now, most people can't do that, and that may be too much, but the idea is put multiple torpedoes in the water. You're bound to hit what you're shooting at, and you're going to miss sometimes, but that's okay. You got to do it. You got to get in the game to win.
So you're saying more than one?
Absolutely more than one. I have my Defender business going on. You know, I consult. I build websites. You know, I'm doing podcasting. Of course, I've been doing that for a long time. I use it as a tool. You know, so I've got all these small businesses running. Now I'm looking at the possibility of doing something in hydroponics. You know, I'm always looking and analyzing, and the more failures you have, actually, the better you are at finding the thing that will succeed. Because you're real good on how not to make something. You know, you've like when they asked Edison about the light bulb when they was trying to invent the light bulb, he says, well, right now I know 10,000 ways of not to build it.
There you go. That's right. That's
you know,
right.
but there's a plethora of concepts, and each failure, in each failure is a seed of success, each one. And you have to sift through that to find that seed. Oh, gosh, this is what I needed to learn in this failure, and carry that on to the next success.
Mm-hmm. Again, I came back to these twins. Sarah Blakely was another one of my first ones. Sarah Blakely, she's a lady who was the youngest billionaire as recognized by Forbes. Billionaire, not millionaire, billionaire. I think she was 30 when she had $1 billion. When she was a kid, her and her brother would sit around the dinner table, and it was every Friday night. Her father always asked the same question, and he would be disappointed if you said, Dad, I didn't. And here's the question he asked. I love this question. What did you fail at this week? He says, you've got to try new things, and some of them are going to fail, but you try, and I'm going to give you a lot of credit for doing it. If you didn't try anything because you were afraid to fail, that was not a good answer, not acceptable answer. So Sarah Blakely was not afraid to fail.
Now let's talk about thinking out of the box. I don't think we covered that. We did in the green room.
No, we didn't.
Well, which, by the way, I'm going to probably put excerpts from the green room up on the website. People want to know what do we do to get ready for this thing. So you're going to start to see a multiple podcasts in one podcast. In other words, you know, we'll have our main podcast, we'll have the green room, and for example, if I want to put the supporting evidence of podcasts like Dillard, I'll probably put them separate than our timeline, our normal timeline. But I've been including them in the timeline, but the last one took me 2 days to do, so it's like maybe I can do something better with that. I don't know, but so let's talk about specifically thinking out of the box. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, thanks to you, by the way, and I'm going to give you credit. You formalized my obsession when we started doing this podcast. I remember you invited me, and I'm always grateful for you to do that when you and Dick were doing this in the beginning. Once I did I don't know if we called it a twin or not, whatever, we had a name for it. And I would research someone who was happened to be in the news, and I said, well, how did this person become so successful? I did the research, and I became obsessed with that.
Which you like to do,
right?
Which you produce superior quality. I bet it's wonderful what you're doing.
I'm obsessed with it. I look before I leave the breakfast table or before I go to bed at night. I watch YouTube videos on people I've read about in the newspaper or heard about.
And you're looking for gaps.
Bang. Anyway, so I think we've done 92 shows. I bet you I've done 85, maybe 88 of these. And
priceless.
And I started looking for trends, because I'm a computer analyst and
Right.
system guy, not an engineer, because I'm not that bright. But and I said, well, why can't I become this and I can't become that, and why can't I teach people because I prefer teaching
I
people.
love to teach. Yeah.
And I noticed what they had in common. I noticed a trend that they had in common. And one of them, I thought, was thinking out of the box. And my definition of thinking out of the box is do something that goes against all the rules. And
It's
that is right.
disruptive.
Right.
Disruptive.
And I said, that's it until last week. Last week, I did a twin on Alexa Von Tobel.
Mm-hmm.
She's a 25-year-old that sold her business for $250 million, Northwestern Mutual. And she comes from the highly regulated business of financial planning.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, is that regulated. Oh, that and Medicare, because I was in that business. And they asked Alexa, well, why, and she didn't use this term, I'll use my term. How long have you been a rebel or a maverick or a disruptor? She says, oh my God. She says, I'm not that. She says, I follow the rules. Oh no, she says, no, don't ever call me that. I follow rules. She doesn't go outside the box, but you know what she does? She goes to the edge. She goes to the edge of the box. You know what's at the edge of the box? Nobody. They're all in the safe center of box. She goes, but still within the guidelines, because in your business you lose your license if you go outside the box. And what she says, there's no one talking to millennials. I'm going to build a business talking to millennials. Well, she made quite a few millions of dollars doing that. Not bad in 4 years. So I've got to stop using the term out of the box. I said, you got to do something that nobody else is doing. And if you're in the regulated business like she was, you can't go outside the box because you lose your license. And if you're not comfortable being called yourself a rebel or a maverick or an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs or a Sarah Blakely, because she went outside the box, just find out where your zone is, and let's go outside a little bit, and we'll get you gradually there. And I teach that process.
Good.
Everybody has a rebel inside of them, but it doesn't have to be a outside the box, to be within the box rebel. And that's it.
All right. Sorry, lost my internet. So we'll just bring it to a close. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our email alerts on the website. It should be on the right-hand side of the podcast, and we'll see you next week.